Good morning, everybody. Today is April 8th, 2026, and this is the this is a work session, actually, of the South Kingstown Assessment Board of Review. First item of business is roll call. David Bott, that's me, I'm here. The gentleman to my right.
Ken Monroe is here.
Present. To my left.
Brad Heaven-Norris present.
Again to my left. Okay, we have, thank you. So we have 4 people here. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the March 25th, 2026 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes. I just note that there's been a period after Alice's first name on a couple of the prior, and I would maybe suggest approving them. And then it's a typo issue, I guess, unless I don't know if you style it with a period, but other than that, I noticed no other issues, so I would make a motion to approve them with the minor amendment or correction.
And what is your middle initial, Alice? C. Okay, we'll make sure we put that in there. Our apologies.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Is there any other discussion? You understand what Brad just talked about, right, Wendy? Okay. Do we all those in favor? Yeah. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Okay. The next item of business is going to be, we have new business here. We have a lot of appeals that we're going to be looking at today from the previous meeting. So, technically the public hearing is closed, and we're going to be discussing this amongst ourselves. However, if for some reason a board member has a question and there is a person out in the audience, we may ask that person a question, but typically we're probably not going to be doing that, but that's not out of the total question. So, next item under new business is appeal number 91. Do we want to start talking about that? Excuse me, 98. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong piece of paper. Yeah, appeal number 98.
Chairman Bott, I forgot to mention to you in the beginning of the meeting that we do have someone in the audience that would like us to possibly hear that case first, because they did drive from out of state and aren't present. But that's up to you. What appeal number were you? 119. Oh, it will most likely be today, but do you want to, it's up to you if you want to move 119 up.
Is this to hear additional information that I understand. He wants us to decide this first. I understand.
So what does the board want to do? Do we want to move it up?
I don't mind. I can do this backwards, forwards, any order. Yeah.
I think at this point, if there's somebody here, and we got several to go before 119, so I would say we move it up to the beginning of the agenda, and we'll try to knock it out. Okay, so we're going to look at appeal number 119. Any comments, questions from board members? Yeah, we have quite a stack.
I mean, this is an unusual, to me, this is an unusual, it's just an unusual, we get these where it's a really unusual property ownership form. I'm guessing there's very few properties that operate under this type of
Very few.
Like-
This is definitely a niche, and I believe the appellant was correct in comparing it to Jerry Brown Farm, which I have no problem pulling up here for you. I have maps. I believe you have some paperwork in front of you with that comp. And we can walk through it if you'd like. Just let me know what you'd like to do.
I mean, I think it's worth going back to what, my recollection of the case that was presented, which compared this property, which is essentially it's just land assessment for a group of homes operating under this ownership form, with the other property at Jerry Brown Farm Road. Maybe worth revisiting the argument there.
I can walk through just sort of the differences if you'd like. I think one of the major, and we'll just look at the land line since it's land. We're not looking at the structures on the land. The difference between the two, and I know it was used as a comp, is that Jerry Brown Farm Road, if you look at the land line on both of the field cards, which you should have in front of you, if not, I can pull them up, but they are different neighborhood in Vision World. Clearly, they're very close to each other. They're essentially neighbors in the real world next door. But South Jerry Cove Road is neighborhood 600, and Jerry Brown Farm Road is neighborhood 575. Now, what that means is there's a different neighborhood adjustment applied. So South Jerry Cove Road, the neighborhood multiplier, we'll call it that, is 2.25, whereas Jerry Brown Farm Road is 1.70. There's 36 house lots on Jerry Brown Farm Road. There are 10 on South Jerry Cove Road. Now, on the field card itself, under notes, you'll see the math applied on South Jerry Cove Road, and then the math applied to Jerry Brown Farm Road to be able to come up with the net value. Now, just keep Jerry Brown Farm Road, the same situation happened to them where, unfortunately, the last reval, it didn't get the due diligence it deserved. So the increase was higher for the statistical. Jerry Brown Farm Road, the last reval, we had them at 14.6 million, and they are currently at 27.1. They did not appeal.
I'm confused about. Maybe I have to find the right card.
I can pass them down. I
Right,
don't
'cause
know
I
what you
see-
have, but I can pass down.
No, what I see
whatever
is
you
that
need.
Jerry Brown Farm Road, there's a neighborhood adjustment of 1 and then 1.7 for the excess land. And on the one card I'm seeing here, the neighborhood adjustment for South Jerry Cove Road, it says 1. But I don't know if I have the wrong.
You may. Let me. I need these back, but I can hand them down. We can look at them, and then if you don't mind sending them back.
This might have been provided by the
Yeah,
appellant.
so this is the additional information supplied by the appellant, and I don't believe the field card for South Jerry Cove Road is there. So why don't I go ahead and pass this down? Actually, why don't I go ahead and bring it up on my computer? Bear with me one moment.
Real quickly, while we have a quick break in here, I did recuse myself from this at the last meeting or the meeting before that. Now that I see it in front of me, I remember. So just for the record, I'm accusing myself from this particular appellant.
Thank you for the reminder. Unfortunately, I can't bring the field card up. If I was on a desktop and I hit Control 5, it would show, but on the laptop, it just doesn't permit me to do that. So I'm just going to pass this down, the two cards, so you can look at them briefly. And if you need us to make copies, we can. So the card on the top is South Jerry Cove Road, who's the appellant that's here today. And then the what's the difference is Jerry Brown Farm Road, which is the second card. So you can just go ahead and look at the multipliers down here below.
That is different than what we have.
Okay.
But I'm going to keep those to the
I didn't want to supply anything that I had for my research. Again, we talked about, we put the packets together, so I'm not going to put anything that the appellant already had their decision with the assessor. So now it's a clean slate with the board. So I'm willing to supply any information so that you can answer the questions that you need to have answered. But I have everything here as far as the difference between, the comp of why Jerry Brown Farm is different from I can't even remember it. South Jerry Cove, Lord.
I have some familiarity with Jerry Brown Farm, and I always remember that being one of the most unique properties there because it was more like you owned a stock ownership, and the lines were clearly defined by the owners, but not clearly defined by plat maps or anything like that. So I know that even going back in properties that I have sold and managed there to even previous assessors, it was always extremely unique and hard because of that. And obviously some people have great properties as far as proximity to the water and some don't. Is that still the case, Wendy? I'll ask you that. And then
Nothing's changed there.
Okay.
It's still the case.
How does South Jerry Cove delineate their property? So that there's 10 lots. Is it like a plat similar to other properties, or is it more like Jerry where they proceed, they maintain it, but there are no actual lot lines?
Correct. It's exactly the latter. So actually, I have it pulled up here just so you could see the difference. Right here to the north is Jerry Brown Farm, and then south is South Jerry Cove Road. The reason for, even though they look similar in location, and this is market-based reval, and it's difficult because there's not a lot of turnover there, so you're not going to get a lot of hits at a market sale. Look, I think there was one the year prior. I have a lot of paperwork on this, and this has to be done manually. This is the reason why we put that, for lack of better words, math on the front of it so that you can see how it's applied, because Jerry Brown Farm and South Jerry are very similar as far as, I'll give you, Jerry Brown Farm has different views.
Try to stand.
And South Jerry has one view.
Right.
So they're getting assessed basically the units that are closer to the water. They're like their prime sites. If you look at the field card, those are calculated different than we'll break them down 1, 2, 3s, 4s. So even though they're similar, they're different because South Jerry Farm is not looked at that. They're all prime waterfront #1 lots in a neighborhood with a higher adjustment. So similar, but not.
Okay. Do they have that? Do they have lot lines? Is it clearly defined?
No. This is leased land, and then the individual house lots are assessed separately.
Okay. So there is similarities to it, but okay. So if you were to sell one of those, is it like you're buying a stock, or is it like you're buying like a condominium? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I can answer that question, and it might be better off to ask the appellant here for South Jerry.
Do
I
you
know their
what
stock.
how I am referencing this?
It might be good to get him on a microphone, I guess, just for the purposes of this. So I apologize.
It's okay with
Don't want to
the board.
misquote you by any means.
we shouldn't.
But I know for a fact that Jerry Brown Farm, there is some stock. I don't know all the details to it because I'm still trying to figure this out.
Yeah,
This is a very funky
It
situation.
literally was one of the most unique situations in the state.
Yeah, I don't think there is another one in the state.
Yeah,
So
it was not my understanding that South Jerry was.
I don't know. I don't believe
So you-
they
you
have
have the answer to
stock
that.
options or some type of
probably-
ownership in that manner.
Back in 1983, it was in fact leased land.
Mhm.
Okay? And then the owner put it up for sale, and so we bought it, and, given the lot size.
As a community.
As a community. It's
Okay.
only 3.62 acres.
Yep.
We bought it and created an association with no boundaries per lot per se.
Okay.
It's kind of similar maybe to Jerry Brown Farm in the sense that, people maintain their particular area around their house, and it's understood. But there's also restrictions as far as what you can and can't do. But we do own the property as an association.
Okay, so similar to an HOA, like a Whack-A-Mole Park got sold, and now it's the Village of Potter's Ponds, but it's more like a condominium ownership.
Yeah, yes, we've compared it to a condominium ownership. We've even looked at possibly changing the ownership over to condominium. We chose not to, but I'd say that that's a very good comparison.
Okay. Yeah. But if you were to sell your property, it's not like you're selling a stock, you're actually selling your interest similar to a condominium, and then there's the property itself, the building, the structure, and then there's the interest in the lands.
Yeah, you would, so we get assessed separately, as you know, our structure, and then we get assessed as one piece of property, and that's what we're talking about today, what we're appealing. If it's sold, we haven't had very many sales.
Right.
It's sold as, okay, the structure, and then your, not portion, but your 1/10 of the land, I guess, is what you said. Does that make sense? I'm not.
Yeah, it does. I'm trying to get the comparisons between the two.
Yeah.
And yours is more like, again, like we have seen before. If you're familiar with like Whack-A-Mole Park, that's now the Village. We've dealt with Mary's and all that type of stuff. There's some similarities there, but Jerry Brown Farm is completely different. It's a stock trade. It's not even a real estate transaction.
Could I ask what that reference is?
Yes. The reference for me is comparing them as apples to apples or apples to bananas.
Okay, so we're not necessarily apples to apples.
Correct, and that's what I'm trying to delineate is what, if any, difference there is. Not that one's better or worse, it's just...
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's just not an apples to apples.
I don't want to... But I mean, you know, in the discussion earlier on, we first talked about the change, sudden change from 7 million to 14 million. We didn't quite understand that, but through the original appeal, it was obvious that that wasn't going to be addressed. What was going to be addressed is you needed to make some sort of comparison. So we went to Jerry Brown and realized, well, you can't use all of Jerry Brown because a lot of the Jerry Brown sites are not waterfront. So my comparison that you'll see there is specifically our 3.62 acres on the water as opposed to whatever their 11 lots are on the water. Now, in reality, there's probably another 9 houses that could almost be considered waterfront, but I don't think according to the assessor they are. So in the field, you'll see where, for Jerry Brown, it actually made it a little bit easier for us, where they broke it out into 4 sections based on proximity to the water.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of lay that
So
out.
we, as much as I wanted to ask for more, okay, we just kind of had to concentrate on those 11 houses that have waterfront, with considerably more property than we do, if you look at it visually, okay? But that's all I could really come up with as far as the appeal goes, okay? So that's kind of where we are.
Perfect. That answers my question.
Okay, thank you.
And, Mr. Hebner, that's the field card that you have. If you're looking at the, I'm sorry, make sure I get it right, Jerry Brown, not South Jerry. If you look at the 11 lots, they are at the highest condition factor, 4.0 times the adjusted base rate of a prime acre site, so which would be, in this case, 176,300 times a neighborhood adjustment at 1.70, not the 2.25 for South Jerry. Those 11 lots, waterfront, are valued at $13.1 million. So if you wanted to use that as a comparison, South Jerry obviously has a different, they've got that neighborhood factor 2.25, and they do have an adjustment for wetlands already built in, and they're at 14 million. So I'm not trying to encourage you to maybe look at that, but it sounds like that's the direction that the appellant is trying to pitch. So that's waterfront view. That's not even the waterfront view, excellent view, or there's 2 other views in South Jerry that are restricted views, but that would be the main waterfront. If you look up at the map, the ones to the far east, those 11 sites are the prime waterfront sites. For comparability purposes, that's probably as good as it's going to get.
Right. I took that from our hearing before because of the way it's broken down on the Jerry Brown Farm Field card. 11 sites that are isolated kind of along the waterfront, similar to South Jerry Cove.
And that's direct views, no impediment.
Right, so it looks like, I mean, my calculations are their contribution, the allocation within your assessment on Jerry Brown Farm is $13 million and change for those 11, which works out to about $1.2 million per home site, whereas South Jerry Cove is assessed somewhere around $1.4 million per home site, the 14 million divided by 10. I think that's what we're being asked to kind of like zoom in on as for purposes of comparison. Now, of course, we don't know. I don't know anything about what these homes are worth or what the land is worth based on any kind of market evidence.
Just to,
So I do have the comparison between the two similar groupings of home sites.
the way the revale, I've worked with this with the project manager, we use the extraction method because it's so unique that we take all of the waterfront sales with similar land features and for better lack of words, back into the land, which we use the extraction method if that's the scientific method for how we get to that land value.
That's among the comps. So you find sales of improved waterfront properties and you extract out the land value based on assumptions about the contribution of the improvements.
Correct.
Cool. That's a cool method. Yeah.
Well, sometimes there's all different ways to get to it. So Turner Cove Way, they appealed this season. They were a Jerry Brown waterfront comp, and then there was a sale on Fire Lane 3 that had a building on it sold for 2.3. So those were they weren't a lot, but those are the main ones that led to some of the waterfront properties.
Now, it seems, and I know you kind of touched on it at the beginning, but the difference between the neighborhood factor then, the 1.7 versus a 2.25, seems to be kind of like what's tipping the scales. I mean, you look at it on the aerial, it's kind of hard to see where that would be, that magnitude of difference between the sites, but is that grounded by neighborhood boundaries, or is there actual data underlying sales at the subject sites that kind of define?
There aren't any sales at the subject site, but there was this past revale, there was a sale within Jerry Brown Farm, and that was a 2.3 sale. So I can pass this along. The ones are really the 11 properties that would be comparable to the properties at South Jerry.
Can I just ask, the sale at Jerry Brown, the recent one, did you say 2.3?
2.3. We have it assessed at 1.5. It sold in 2024 on May 3rd. 2.3. Well, 1.1. It came through in 2 deeds. I actually didn't qualify this, but it was something that we looked at because it came through like that. Yeah. Turner Cove was really the big land sale in that area. There was no structures on it, but that was a true land sale, so that was the 1-for-1 ratio. If there's any other questions, I'd be more than happy to help explain the difference, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
I'm studying the map, and I don't know what the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s signify on this map.
The ones are the prime
Right.
4.0 waterfront.
Yeah, there's only 9 that I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I mean, I
6,
did a little
7,
arts and crafts.
9.
That was last season.
Right, yeah, no, I'm just noticing because there's 9 ones here, but it looks like there's 11 ones identified on the, in the notes on the field card. maybe this, yeah, maybe it's 117 and 119. They look like they're at least proximate. Yeah, so the helpful doesn't quite line up exactly with the.
I tried.
No, that's helpful. I mean,
Just bear with me. Don't know why my computer just shut me down, so I got to restart all the GIS and everything. I feel like I've got a good sense of I mean, I think that what the owner's done for us, I think is like, we don't have the map in front of us, but I think the owner has kind of isolated for us a pretty good, comparison, given that these are unusual property types, and noting that the apples to apples on ownership is not quite there. But what the impact is or what the ramifications are for value is questionable for me. But I mean, I do think it's fair to say that they've got, basically looking at it on a per home site basis makes sense to me. Extracting out the home sites on the assessment comp that they're looking at, extracting out the home sites that are kind of to the rear, the inferior home sites, and isolating just the ones on the waterfront that are comparable to theirs makes sense to me to take a look at. And I think to consider if those home sites are at 1.2 per home and their home sites are at 1.4, it makes sense to kind of like zoom in and consider the difference. Maybe taking their argument and focusing our attention to either explaining that gap or bridging it with a change. All right, we're back up.
Yeah. So I think they've got a decent case. It's logical to me. It's really more, I mean, this is one of those territories where we're kind of in comparison, like it's assessment comparative rather than, market driven, which is, hard. But I don't really know if I see a $200,000 per home site difference between the two properties. The assessors get done us a favor by kind of breaking down the different rows in the larger site, in the Jerry Brown Farm site, which kind of gives us a way of thinking about these ones. And it seems to have, everything is baked into those units of comparison, 1.2 versus 1.4. That includes considerations for wetland factors, neighborhood factors, which is kind of a question mark. Like, I don't know how convinced I am that there's a, 0.5 spread between the qualities in the neighborhood. So on the subject, they're all fours. Essentially, they're.
I'm not sure what the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4 without looking at the map. But in my world, when you're saying 4, you're meaning waterfront direct
factor?
views. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying condition factor. I'm sorry. I'm thinking on the map. No, South Jerry has on one moment. I believe they have waterfront adjustment. Bear with me one moment. So they're actually at they're actually like a 2 because they've got 50% for topo. The way they calculate this is they start at a 4, but then they reduce it 50%.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
That's
the
because, I mean, I guess
reduction
what's-
is,
What's going on is that you're doing you're trying to derive an acre value, right? And so you need to adjust for the impact of low utility acreage.
but it ends up being collectively off the whole.
Right. So there's value per acre impacted by wetland areas, and then for the purposes of the owners, it's effectively value per unit.
Right, because this is
Like-
all of the 10 waterfronts versus at Jerry Brown, they're being applied, because there's 36 lots, it's being applied differently within, so it is not apples to apples, but you can understand it,
Yeah.
you want it to be, I know, there isn't one
Because we're
like.
kind of slicing and dicing it, and I think that apples to apples on a per acre basis is, like, for us, I think impossible to calculate, just because they've got some 70 acres on one side, and much of it is interior lands. Which is, I mean, to me, it's why the per unit, per home site is I think, a useful lens.
You got it all here.
I'm just trying not to dominate the.
I'm not comfortable with the big difference between the land values from 1-point-something million to 4 million.
It's easy to understand why there's a difference, just because, they're different sites, and they're baking in a lot of different factors, so that's easy to understand. The assessor nicely broke down the properties in Jerry Brown Farm Road to help, understand how it all adds up together in terms of the comp. That some are in the back, some on the front, some are in the middle, and they each contribute differently to the whole $27 million land value. And I like that. And I don't see much of a difference between the 10 sites that are the subject and the 11 sites in the comp that have been isolated as kind of the premium waterfront sites that are similar to the subject. I mean, we could. Yeah, I just don't see enough of a difference to explain that. So, I would be, where I'm leaning, but I also would love to hear a consensus, but I would move the $1.4 million per home site value closer to where the comp's at. I think there's a case there when you kind of weigh the two. It would make sense to factor that in. It's not. I don't even know if it's a huge ask, really. But that's my thinking.
I would like to, by the time you divvy up the 10 lots with the value of the land, I would like to see the land value come down on that, closer to what Jerry Brown Farm has.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in terms of numbers, if we made them equivalent, that is a $2 million drop in assessment, approximately. And the question is, in cases like this, you know, where we have at this point just discretion because we have no number pointing to anything other than the assessment comp that's at about 1.2 per unit. So whether we take the whole bite or whether we kind of land on a compromise where we, you know, give some consideration to what's been brought. That's kind of the decision to be made now. It's hard to, I mean, I will offer just generally, it's hard to do $2 million swings in assessment, you know, without really strong market support, appraisals, things like that. I mean, that's just something that I can think of very few cases where we've swung a property value $2 million on the basis of one assessment comp, right? So on the one hand. On the other hand, we're often very responsive to discrepancies when there's a direct comparison available and where there seems to be some kind of equitable difference, disproportionate difference between two comparable assessed properties. It's hard for us to ignore similar properties that have a variance that wide. And I mean, really the only data point we have is that assessed value per unit of 1.2 per unit in the comp. So those are kind of the two sides of the argument. No. Right, and I think that it's hard. We can't, on our own, do our own analysis evaluating any kind of like qualitative or quantitative differences between the two sites, the neighborhoods, the impact of the corporate or co-op ownership on the one side, or whatever's going on in the neighborhood. The other. We don't have that. We don't have that in front of us. We have the assessment comp, and I think we can weigh it. But you know, so I would be. I mean, what I'd be in favor of is giving some weight to what's been presented to us and offering a reduction or considering a reduction for the subject, bringing it to 1.3 per unit. So it would be about a $1 million change in assessment in consideration of that. With that, I think we can just do that. It kind of meets in the middle. We have some information, but not all the information we need to understand.
There were 20 land sales for the reval and Turner Coast specifically in this neighborhood. Just that's what the town uses for comps.
Yeah, and I mean that's an interesting. Theoretically, with land sales, are we looking for a value as if this were free and clear, like an available waterfront 5-acre parcel? Or are we looking at it as a 4.6-acre parcel that supports 10 existing homes? Like what should the land value reflect, and how does that relate to the data that we have available? Even if we had an appraisal, it would be hard to like get to the bottom of like what does that mean for the subject? Are we considering the subject as it is associated with the homes that are constructed, as it relates to the homes that are constructed on the site? This is a good first one for our day when we try to get through 20 appeals. I have the assessment as 14,005,520, is that? Yeah, yeah, so what's on the field card, it reflects that it's, right,
That's changed from this.
yeah, so we've been dueling field cards, so I imagine there was a change at some point in the interim.
All right, let me actually just pull it up right here and I'll share the screen with you.
Got 13.9.
I don't want you guys in my inside database.
Okay.
Take the 14, cut it in half, and then multiply it 2. It's like, kind of, yeah.
I just thought of a different way to grab the field card. There we go.
Yeah. No, these have been tricky. It's easier if someone brings us an appraisal that's credible and we can just reconcile with it. It's harder when we're trying to, weigh in to be kind of like indirect. I consider assessment comparables to be like kind of indirect comparatives, and they're not market. It's more of a fairness issue than a market value issue, and that becomes a little more of a gray area for us. So yeah, it really is a question of magnitude and what we're comfortable with. And the reason I could just make a motion right now, but I don't like kind of trying to force through a significant change without some kind of board, consensus with the other board members, because it's a big, it would be a big number. I mean, in terms of percentage, maybe not the hugest number, but in terms of magnitude, we don't see $14 million properties before us that often.
Yeah, that difference is the neighbor, if you're looking on this field card and under notes, that 10 waterfront lots, so the prime, I'll just highlight it, I don't know, okay, good, it is kind of coming up, let me zoom in there. There we go. Okay, so just to break it down again, so your 5,000 square foot lot all across town for this reval is your standard 155, 400. So then once you have the neighborhood multiplier, so neighborhood 600, that multiplied by the 10 plus the neighborhood adjustment, not the 1.70 like Jerry Brown. So there's your difference there. Gets you to that 13,986. And then there's a 19,000 applied for some topo on 3.47 acres. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Yeah, and just the way the software rounds up, that's where we got the 14. We wanted to override it to something else. We could do that, but we just add that up, and I think that gets us there. There isn't, because that is literally the manual math that we have to apply. So, and I'm glad that I asked the project manager to put those on the field cards so that we can be transparent, because if you looked at this otherwise and wanted to use this as a comp, you'd be pretty confused. Okay, so yeah, so the 13,986 plus the 19,519 is exactly 14, is exactly the total appraised value. So yeah, so that's the math. So you got that. Plus that is where they're at. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, let's bring that up, actually. That's a good idea.
We need a whiteboard for that.
Bring that next season, whatever I gotta do. Brad, do you mind reading me the plat and the lot on the top of Jerry Brown?
Sure.
Field card?
Jerry Brown Farm Road is 82-1-1.
Perfect. All right, let's see if I can do a side by side here. All right, so this is pretty straightforward because all 10 lots are valued in the same fashion. So this is all in one bucket. You've got the 36 half-acre lots. So you've got two of them at a condition factor of 1, 14 of them at a condition factor of 1.5, 9 of them at a condition factor of 2.5, and then here's your prime 11, 4.0 condition factor waterfront lots. So that they're applying that brings, let me go back to, whereas you've got the 1554 times the neighborhood here, this neighborhood factor, well, looks a little funny on the card. It should say I'll go down here. It should say the 1.70. Unfortunately, it doesn't, so I'll have to go in there and apply that. But that's the difference between the 13,986 is this neighborhood adjustment here. They're being valued at a 2.25 for a different neighborhood, and then they're being multiplied by 1.70. So that's the difference in this value. You can see it here. It's a different neighborhood factor. Hopefully that helps.
I'm still, just not to repeat it, but it's like, what we're being asked to say is like, isn't the subject similar to these sites on this lot that the assessor has already broken out and valued?
It's similar, yes, but not really. Different neighborhood factor. South Jerry is 2.25. This neighborhood is 1.7 because of the discrepancy within the bucket of bananas.
I mean, if it's a neighborhood factor, I mean, the difference between the two unit values is about 16 or 17%. So is South Jerry Cove Road 16 or 17% superior than that strip on Jerry Brown Farm Road? That's the portion of the comp. That's kind of what we're being asked.
Correct.
At.
It's being looked at as a superior
Yeah.
neighborhood. Therefore, the factor is higher, and it's applied to all of the entirety of the 10 house lots or parcel,
Yeah.
land parcel. Well, both. We work in tandem, and that's based on sales, and that's how they create the neighborhoods. They're not neighborhoods like Peacedale, Oak Hill. People think, especially in the realtor world, those are neighborhoods. These are vision neighborhoods based on sales. At some point, you have to draw a line in the sand where the sales end and begin, and every reval is a different neighborhood. Some stay the same, some move based on sales. So it will change again next reval. I believe the old neighborhood, if I'm going based on my memory, for Jerry was 1.3, and I'd have to look it up what it was for South Jerry. But yeah, those change every reval based on sales, and if there aren't any sales, some neighborhoods don't change, but this one did.
Qualified to say that there should be the difference there. I mean, how they came up with that, I don't know how much I'm qualified to say that they're wrong.
The lots at Jerry Brown Farm are calculated at a half acre per dwelling. With South Jerry Farm, what is the calculation?
5,000 square foot lots, and as we know, sometimes the smaller builds and the smaller lots have a higher value embedded in. Good eye, Alice.
So you're talking that the lots are approximately half the size.
On the one hand,
But they're not, it's not actually not done that way.
I know.
Yeah, because there's more land in the back than there is in the front. So the properties that are on the waterfront, they're not sitting on half acres. They're all clustered together. I think, if that's kind of your point, I don't think there's that big of a discrepancy in my opinion from sitting here and my knowledge of it, but not actually being there.
I'm just thinking when it's portioned out to the different properties.
I'd be
I mean, the
more
other
than
way to look
happy
at
to
it is
hand
you've
this
got-
out. It's a prime site land curve, and it's spot on. 5,000 square feet is 155,400. Now, Jerry Brown, see how it's the 1762? that falls more in line between a 15,000 and a 20,000 square foot lot. So your baseline for your base lot is already about 20-some, it's higher. So that's some of it as well.
It's a tough one. We're being challenged with trying to come up with this thing which is not necessarily accurate. So, again, I'm fine doing something, but I think, and you're here, so I would just tell you that to bring us something that's more tangible in the form of appraisal or whatnot, it would be more helpful, at least for me, because I see something, but exactly how to figure out how to present that. The burden is on you as coming in here to kind of prove your point.
Oh, I understand.
And one way to do that, and I'm not telling you what to do or not to do, but one way to do that is an appraisal where it breaks it all down, where we just don't have the ability to kind of do that. So we see something is a little amiss here, but to figure out exactly what it is and how to do it and to go against vision in the town that's our challenge. That's our challenge.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm trying to figure out what would be an example of an appraisal that I would provide you with.
Hire an official appraisal to come and figure out what we're trying to do and bring that to us. Because for us to do it in this short amount of time, it's not feasible, and this is very murky in my opinion. Maybe not in yours, maybe not in other people's, but in my opinion, it's very murky. And again, I'm looking for apples to apples comparisons as much as possible to prove beyond reason that the assessment is incorrect. So something feels a little off to me, but trying to quantify that is my challenge. And I believe that's Brad and Alice's challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this, just generally, this round of appeals has tended to been put more in the bucket of like disproportionate assessment based on neighboring properties than on, I think, the market value of my property is incorrect. And typically people come in and say, you've overassessed us, based on the following factors. This year we're getting a lot of look at, the 5 neighbors around me, why am I so high? And we're also, what we're seeing is, like in this case, people had a big jump, right? And so they come to us, they say, in this case it's actually doubled. The assessment is doubled. So we're kind of, that is being presented to us. And, responding to disproportionality, responding to magnitude of tax assessment increase is harder for us than strict market. We're the kind of market value people. These deliberations then become, for us, they feel a little bit more subjective and based on judgment rather than evidence.
And my opinion on that, and just again, so the 51% doesn't resonate as much with me because I'm just looking at this in a vacuum. I'm just looking at it in 2024. Is that assessment feel good, or does it feel disproportionately wrong? I don't get caught up in that. I understand that personally, but from a board perspective, that doesn't factor in as much for me. I don't know how you guys feel. You can answer to that, but it's just is that number fair compared to the rest of the town or the area? And again, it does seem to be off to me, but to what extent and how to correct it? That's at the risk of being repetitive. That's the challenge that I'm struggling with.
I can't fully reconcile the difference. There may be good reasons why the Jerry Brown property is lower. Maybe it has to do with the groupings of property. It's like we're talking about a neighborhood that's composed of different, larger number of different properties, whereas the subject is simply 10 lots on the waterfront. Which I think that's what leads me to say, there may be some underlying reasons why there's some difference in unit home site value between the two, but I think we could kind of meet in the middle, acknowledging that we can't fully explain the spread, that 16 to 17% spread, which is why I think I'd be in favor of, I think middle is a good place to orient sometimes when in the absence of other benchmarks.
So are we looking at the value of the neighborhood? Where are we hanging our hat here? Neighborhood value or?
In attempting to determine that between the 2.25 and the 1.70, is that what?
I could hang half a hat on differences in the neighborhood, and the other half of that hat I would probably abate, is what I'm saying here.
Can you do some of that math and let me know what you're kind of coming up with?
A change to, I would say, in the middle, would be 1.3 per home site, or about 13, and we could just say 13 million. It gestures, it gestures an acknowledgement of the discrepancy of what is, to me, almost a directly abutting or neighboring assessment comp. Doesn't go all the way there, because there are maybe other intangible factors that, but yeah, it would be a reduction. I don't know if anyone's going to be fully satisfied with. That's a 7% decrease in the overall assessment. After they've received a 100% increase in assessment from the previous,
I wish I felt strongly more about this,
Yeah.
but I'm fine with that. If you want to make that motion, I will.
Yeah.
I would back that.
I'll make the motion. We got, how many, we got 100 plus appeals, we might as well, kind of tag it and bag it and try to move on. I think we're approaching this thoughtfully and with care. And, but my motion, would you prefer just a raw number?
I'll have to override this.
This is just going to be an override. My motion would be to change the assessed value in consideration of the assessment comparable presented. Change the assessed value to $13 million from its current 14,520.
Using round numbers, I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. We did one in an hour. We're going to be here all year long. So, oh yeah, please. Thank you, appreciate it. It's not going to get any easier because we have a bunch of these where what we're being asked to operate in a subjective territory. Messy process, messy assessment system season. So we do the best we can.
Okay. Just a quick question to Wendy. We have a few other people in the audience here. Are there any other unique circumstances like this one, or
Not that I was aware of or approached,
Okay.
but if you wanted to take the temperature and maybe hear those two and then start from the top, that's up to you.
I like that. We can kind of just go in any scattered order.
Okay, who's who here? What? Yes, we have 101.
101 and 123. Present.
Yeah.
I would just say go in numerical order on that.
All right. Why don't we, if the board's okay with that, why don't we take a look at appeal number 101? Thank you. It was a pleasure sitting there in silence. Okay, appeal number 101, and again, we're going to look at this, and if we have any questions, we may ask some questions, but technically the public hearing is closed. Okay. If anybody wants to start, they are more than welcome to. I'm just trying to get my head around this from the last meeting.
Yeah, hold me back if I'm talking too much. This is one, I think the case was pretty well presented. The homeowner started by discussing conversations that they'd had with real estate professionals. They went out and talked to realtors and a real estate assessor to get some help with which direction to go. And then she took she kind of ran with that. And I don't think she really needed the help of the real estate professionals because she made a really good case that kind of zoomed in to me on, I think, maybe 2 places where we can focus. She discussed the construction of her home in 1996, and I think objected to the home classification and essentially quality grade of the current assessment. I think this is assessed as a custom home. She described her participation in the construction process, how the home was designed, how it was built. The owner, I believe, did some of the work themselves on the home. And so I think it's worth looking at the classification as custom, which seems to be swinging the value a lot higher than it might be, in consideration of whether this really should fall into a custom home bucket, which to me, I still contend that custom is expressing elements of quality in addition to style. And I think the other thing is it was pretty well, the case is well made, and I don't know the impact on value off the top of my head, but they're being assessed for a water view amenity that might also be questionable given the location of the property. And I think part of the evidence that's presented was other properties that are closer and have superior water views that are not, where the water view is not indicated on their field cards. So I think the water view adjustment we can look at, and I think we should consider home style and quality. Plenty of evidence is presented to kind of walk us through it. So maybe not a perfect summary, but I think it focuses what I retained from the presentation.
We're looking from your perspective, Brad, at the view and that designation to see how accurate that is, as well as the style of home. You think those are the 2 things we need to be zeroing in on?
Yeah, I think that's, in my opinion, but just like the notes that I took during the presentation, those are the 2 pieces that kind of piqued my interest. Maybe we'll start with the easy one, maybe just asking the assessor what the impact of the water view adjustment is, which I might overlook, but I think other comps were presented where there are properties that have clear water views that may not have an adjustment.
Yep, this has a ocean view, but the condition factor is 1.43, so that tells me it's not much of an ocean view, but I've got the map pulled up here just so you can see in relation to
Okay.
I mean, clearly not waterfront, but from somewhere in the house, and you get 10 different assessors, you'll get 10 different opinions, same with appraisers, whether it's one room or a deck or there is some type of ocean view there, and that is taken into account in that condition factor. So,
looks like there's in the notes it says ocean view ACC-5%, so I don't know if that might be an indication of.
Correct. So I think you had mentioned that you had an appetite for doing something there. You could reduce the condition factor, but that's that main house acre. So it's a 5.77 acre lot. The residual 4.77 acres is being valued at 0.50 at half. There's a 50% reduction for topo there. So you're really looking at that main prime acre site, and let me just get my reload book. Tell you what it would be without an ocean view. Bear with me a moment here. So it would be 217,360 if it were a just like your basic 1 acre lot. If you look across it, the land value is 2,953. So the difference in value there between 217 and 295 is for that ocean view. Whatever that may be.
Is there anything in the packet that you guys are saying about the ocean view itself that I need to be looking at?
She did submit a photo of the ocean, her ocean view in comparison to, I believe, there is an assessment comp with a superior water view that is presented, where I believe it's not being adjusted for. It's Indigo Point. But she has photos of her view and a comparison of 8 Indigo Point in Green Hill. The subject view, I mean, it appears to be obstructed pretty significantly by vegetation and power lines. And also, I mean, that's to say nothing for distance, so. I imagine that might have just been tacked on at some point over the, the life of the home by a previous assessor that may or may not be well-founded.
I didn't go down the history of when that was applied. It could have easily been at 1996. Maybe there was a better view then before South Route 1 was built. I couldn't tell you the history there. I'm speculating at this point.
Sure.
That's why we look at them.
We have, I think what was presented, this property on Indigo Point Road is a property that's sold, that is more proximate to the water, has a clear water view, and it does not appear that the land has a specific water view adjustment. So given the location of the subject, I would presume there are probably a number of properties that exist in our tax rolls that have superior water views and that may or may not be assessed for water views. I think that's kind of small potatoes compared to the custom issue, but I think those are the two.
And just a side note, I know I've been out on property south of Route 1 that you would think would be a water view, and they just don't have the view. So just because it's north of Route, I don't know if I go down that road, but like we said, small potatoes.
It may be the subject benefits from elevation, the topography, that kind of thing. It's yeah.
Brad, what would you think would be the appropriate designation from the water view standpoint? Like, what are our options there?
That's up to, we could eliminate it. I mean, I think the magnitude of the adjustment is minor. It's just a question of, is there a fairness issue if there are properties out there that have superior water views that have no adjustment? And I guess we can't answer that without doing like a full research on adjustments. But I mean, it's something to look at.
I have a thought, just because when we first were handling the customs and the sales came in, and we were like, whoa. And then we printed out every single custom card, right? Keep in mind, it's not a full reval, so we weren't obligated to print out all 14,000 and look at them. So if something was a colonial, and it maybe should have been a custom, we weren't looking at those, okay? So once we had all of them, Jennifer and I, there were customs in Kingston. We're like, there's no way market value. Like, they're being skewed by the 4 sales that were south of Route 1. So we did apply obsolescence or codes to some of those. We reduced it in that manner. Now, this property being north of Route 1, not suggesting that you do that, but we did apply that to some custom properties that were getting the hammer of the sales, the 4 sales that came in for custom south of Route 1. That might be a tool that you could use if you so wish. We didn't apply it here because what could it sell for that? Maybe, right? We don't always have that answer, right? That's what it all comes down to. What would you sell it to me for? So would a custom home that close to Route 1 and have an ocean view, what would it sell for? So those are the questions that you can ask yourself when you're going down this road. That's what we did with the customs that we had that were north of Route 1.
I think the proximity to Route 1 is also a negative factor. You will hear the traffic noise from the south.
2 realtors on the board. Your weight will go farther than us in that manner, so that's why some of the customs made their way. We did the best we could with the hats that we wear. Now you've got a different hat that you wear, and that's why they're here. I appreciate what your feedback would be. Is that a negative or a positive? You've got so much experience under your belt, Alice, as far as what you think could sell. I'm sure the appellant would lean on your expertise more.
I don't think the assessment is far off. Could it sell for that? Very possibly, considering it's almost 3,000 square feet.
And just feedback, any of the customs that were, this is a 1996 year built, effective year built 1996, they obviously kept up with the house meticulously because there was no other, there wasn't any other improvements made that were the magnitude where we would have applied a different effective year built. So the customs are more of like a newer thing because a lot of the new construction, unfortunately, for us is custom, or we think it is, and we have the opinion and the hat that we can do that based on if they hired an architect and who the builder is, and if it's a custom builder, well, we're going to go down that road. If there was a custom applied in 1996, I'd hang my hat. It was probably a custom in 1996. Like, they didn't really just toss that around. There weren't a lot of custom homes. There were upgrading a lot of the ranches and things that you see. Now is when you see the improvement. They've got to, take it down and put on stilts and all this other crazy stuff, right? Code has come a long way since the 90s, so just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, I really, The issue, and this is, we're going to see this, we keep seeing this, but, I don't know what it means for us, but someone comes to us with a 60% increase in assessment because they were swept up in the custom surge in South Kingstown, right? Because they've been designated as a custom home for whatever reason, perhaps well-founded. And then they show us all the properties in the neighborhood. Many of them built maybe in a similar time frame, maybe have similar appearance. And, those assessments are going up 15, 20, 25% with the averages in town. And it's very hard for us to look at pictures of these homes and really say, what is the difference between a conventional and a custom, a Cape Cod? Which would be fine. It's fine if it didn't have the effect of doubling someone's assessment, or where all the neighbors are on a unit cost of $200 a square foot. And if you happen to be stuck in the custom bucket, you're going to $450 a square foot. So it's hard for me because I just don't think it's a matter of objectively looking at it and being like, well, it was architect design and it doesn't quite fall in the colonial bucket, so we'll, it ends up in custom. And we've got this, I'll acknowledge before anyone that there are a lot of homes, very fine, high quality, high-cost homes that have been built in South Kingstown, and we can't miss those by not allowing for some kind of a system for accounting for the millions and millions of dollars that are being spent to build real fine architect-designed, award-winning homes in town. The division has to get a tool to get accurate market values of all the real estate in this town. And we've seen every possible type of real estate this session. I feel like this season, and last, counting the cottages and everything like that. So that's. I mean, it's hard for me just to kind of shrug and say, well, it's custom, like, without. I mean, we're going to keep coming back here on these customs again and again, and I don't think it's the. I feel like the responsibility for that shouldn't just fall on the homeowner to bear either the burden of the increase or the burden of trying to disprove something that, to me, seems, it seems like there's some arbitrary nature that's like sweeping some of these people up in that, and that's just, it's kind of how I feel about this. I could get behind custom, but yeah, the unit cost on this one is $424 a square foot as a base unit cost. That's driving her increase. I mean, there's a couple others. I mean, there's a Colonial at $238 a square foot. That it looks Colonial, but it's got the porch. So I don't know what could be done there. I mean, I'm looking at grade or quality. It could be that we look there, but I'm compelled to give some consideration to what this and the other cases of custom are bringing to us.
David, from a builder's perspective, do you have any thoughts on that? Because that's more of your alley.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes. I mean, this is designed, this is built in 96 and 97, and Mayor Bonner was the architect. I know he wrote it. I heard from the architect. So, when I look at this is a custom home back in the day. I suppose, this is just some really unique characteristics, and where this is. Sorry. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess from when it was built, I look at this being a custom home. However, it's 96, and we're, 30 years old? So, there's a lot of things that have changed in buildings since 96 to where we are today. So, you can look at a home today and call it a custom versus a custom home in 96, and I would put more credence and a higher value on a home built today as a custom home. So, I guess I'm just making things more confusing by saying, so I look at this as a custom home, but it's, you got to take a factor, and I think we need to take a factor and decrease that custom definition based on the time frame when it was built.
So do we have the ability to take a custom minus some of these things that are, plus this grade, plus that type of thing? Is there a mechanism that we potentially could use to kind of say, okay, yes, it's custom, but it's not quite conventional custom, but it's like custom minus something?
I don't think there's an easy one, personally, and I think we've already, in this season, we've addressed it all different kinds of ways already. We change it to colonial conventional or modern or one of the other ones because we got to get from 400 to 200 or whatever. We've said, okay, we're really talking about quality here, grade. We're not talking about style. We're talking about grade. So we go from average. We've done it where we said we're going to go average plus 10 to average or whatever. That's another way. Another way that Dave and I went through on one where you weren't with us is we just did manual overrides. We just said, you know what, let's just knock off 5% because we can't figure this out, but something's got to be done, and we can't figure out how to do it. And if we go tinkering with grade or custom, then we're just going to tie the hands of the assessors down the road making these changes, but maybe something else needs to be done. Where these cases very similar like this, where they got thrown into the custom bucket, and their assessments went up 70%, and they're not, this isn't like a Pritzker award-winning waterfront home that is in all the home magazines. It's a very nice home, and we have no other market data to go on. So we've done it all different ways. We've done it by looking elsewhere, looking at depreciation. Wendy's asking us to look at external obsolescence, and she's saying maybe there's another lever you can
So many tools in the tool belt.
to do it, but to me, it doesn't matter exactly what tool. I wish it was as easy as saying, let's just do the accurate thing. this is where I think when Dave and I felt that just like, we're gonna do manual override, that could trigger the assessor to look closely at it next time and make sure that these are in line, because, you know, I don't wanna do something that's gonna lock in
I
something
would
forever
prefer
that's
that, because
disproportionate.
then for each reval, I can run a report based on overrides. Specifically, there's a code for assessment board of review, which we've never done before. So this is like, for me, in my new assessor world here, we're living in like, we're still going up the hill chiseling tablets. We're living in two different worlds here. It's very tough for everybody. But mechanisms for me, for revals, so they don't get lost and slip through the cracks, because things happen. Or if we've had 5 assessors in 3, right? If there's turnover, forget it. But
Totally.
any assessor, not just me, I'm hoping I'm still here, but they can come in and run that report and be like, okay, what happened? And it says what happened. Here's the reduction, and here's the reason. So, A, we know what happened, not, oh, that probably happened 20 years ago, but we're speculating, right? Because there's no other way to access that. So we're just trying to move forward, right? And just clean up. Every reval, we get a little bit better. So for me, I would prefer just that, but that doesn't mean that that can't happen, because there's other reports I run, and one of them are obsolescence. I run through all of those every reval as well. So if that's a tool, you know, it's hard to put everybody in one bucket, because you are looking at one appeal, but then you're also looking at the problem of the customs, right? So to kind of, you've got the bird's eye view, but if you zoom in a little bit more just on this particular one, for me, you could do that, that's fine, but the only reason I even suggested in this case is because we've already applied it for other ones north of Route 1. So I think a lot of the ones we had here were south of Route 1, so I wouldn't have mentioned that because that didn't apply. So sometimes it's not like I'm trying to hold my cards back or anything like that. It's just sometimes things make sense for this appeal. You do what you wish.
Right, and I think that one risk is, like, because I think we've done it in this season, where it's like, you know what, let's just line this up with the neighbors and call it a colonial. And that kind of locks it in, and I think that and I worry about, because what happens when we start making these singular changes is that next season we get the person's neighbor or the person across the street, and it's like, hey, you changed my neighbor to colonial, now change me. And then we trigger, if we're not, like, if we don't have the big picture in mind, we start triggering these little pockets of changes where we don't understand, you know, and then we're constantly chasing down the road other people that you know, like,
We're also learning, too, as we move along here. This is our first season that we've really worked together in this capacity, and it's my first reval as an assessor here, so I can hang my hat on that. But just something to be mindful of. Like, I think only because I'm trying to be helpful. I'm not trying to impede due process, but I'm hearing that, you know, Mr. Buss saying, no, this definitely is a custom. Hey, it definitely is a 5. If you've maxed that out and you're like, well, no, there's no way it's a 7, it's a 6. Use those tools, you know, because that makes sense. If the grade's incorrect and you feel that to be the case, then go ahead and do that. If you're like, no way, that's not a custom, that's a colonial, do that. But if you're like, no, it's a custom, that grade's right, boom, 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 then,
That's why we override.
then you max out your tool belt, and then you get to the override, or maybe an external obsolescence that makes sense, and then you do that. So don't feel any kind of way that it's not consistent, because it's consistently being looked at individually. You've got this mass appraisal umbrella, and then you're looking at one appeal. It is tough.
And we can
You're doing a good
I
job.
think we'll make decisions today if we get to any more of them. We'll make some decisions today that can pull from any of those tools. And I think the reason we did the override in one case that I'm thinking of was it was clearly a very, very nice home, and it had to stay in the custom bucket. But we made an adjustment because we felt an adjustment was warranted. And I think that, I mean, the reason the customs keep coming up is just because you have base costs at $100, $200, and then the customs are just in another stratosphere. And so these borderline cases are just causing a lot of friction with, you know, in that median. There's no $300 square foot. You know, there's no middle, there's no squishy middle, there's no like very nice, very, very nice home, not quite custom, and there's no, like, what you should add is like the super duper or something like that. Call it super duper.
These are all on the table, so let's see what next season
I
brings.
trademark super duper, and then that should
Noted.
yeah, that I will offer that to the town as a suggestion. So this conversation is a little extended, but I think it'll help us through the rest of them. So.
Yeah, just to clarify, Ken, we pretty much what you know, what Brad just discussed is how we went about it, then we just kind of said, okay, we're just gonna shoot from the hip and come up with an adjustment. And I made that clear. Yeah, and we made that statement very clear when we, you know, made the motion, or, you know, for the reason. So, I know I don't like shooting from the hip either, and it's hard to not come up with a mathematical, you know, reason to do something to make an adjustment, but we were doing some hip checks, so to speak, at the last, that meeting that you missed. So, that being said, do we want to, does anybody have a suggestion to make an adjustment for this property? Well, I guess I have a question. The first question I have is, is there something here we can lower the value of this house by the age when it was built? I don't, maybe we don't want to stick into that bucket anymore.
I appreciate that you asked, because sometimes it makes sense, and for this particular appeal, the year built being the same as the effective year built, 1996, we use a chart that is cohesive throughout town. And that's actually being rated as fair. Now, I don't personally feel that is fair, but I also can't go lower than the year built, so they kind of benefit from keeping up with it, really, and not having to do a larger improvement that would change that effective year built. So there's no meat on the bone.
You've maxed out physical depreciation.
You got it. The only other, if you look down the line there, there's a functional and external obsolescence. I wouldn't suggest a functional, because there's clearly nothing functionally incorrect, but you could, like I said, we've done this before. If you were to apply, it was depending on where the location was. I think the highest external was like 5 or 7 we were applying. So if you went with a 7 here, that reduces it from 1.4 to 1.3. Just to give you a range, right? If you applied a 10, that brings it down to 1.265. So you could override it if you wanted to shoot for a number that you felt comfortable with, or the tool of external obsolescence being North Route 1, whether you think it would warrant that on the market, it would be appropriate to apply that there.
What is the benefit then of placing it in the external obsolescence bucket, I guess? What advantage do we gain from, rather than just doing an override?
That stays there until the assessor takes it off, basically.
Yeah.
And so whether that can stay there forever, or I run a report and I look at all of them and decide whether it needs to come off, or it needs to be reduced or moved up. I will admit, some assessors will clear that off the books every reval.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that right now. I'm looking at those individually during reval.
Yeah, because I'd be kind of like, assuming that maybe there's some sort of easing of this custom stress, you know, like I don't mind making kind of like in 3 years, are we going to be going through this again with the customs, or can that be smoothed out so we're not like?
Well, I'm highly aware that if I see it on a custom, we've either applied it because of its location.
So we're pulling down, we're trying to pull down that base cost, which we think, because this is being averaged in with all the customs in town, when this is, to me, maybe in a slightly different category. And I guess versus, the other option we have is going to grade, where it's average plus 20. Because I look at that and be like, maybe it's just go from average plus 20 to say just average, because it's getting hit for the custom. Maybe we don't want to hit it for custom and then also say it's a superior grade, but I don't know what the ramifications
and I'll just read
of that
economic
are.
depreciation, because it sounds like something that Alice had mentioned. We apply it when a negative valuation influence exists outside the boundaries of the subject property and affects its overall value. Sometimes it would be next to a commercial property, or in this case, low proximity to Route 1. So most likely that would stay, but I don't commit to anything. I don't know the winning power bonus for they pull them, and I don't know what I'm going to do in 3 years. But I didn't take them off the books for this reval, and I don't plan on taking them off. I plan on looking at them, and if it makes sense, they stay. Sometimes things change, so that's why we look at them. Maybe there was an external obsolescence applied due to something funky happening, some construction or something, and then it's complete, and then that doesn't apply anymore, and you can remove it. I can also do that, though, if you give me a number and I override it, I can look at those and clean. So I wouldn't worry about what I'm gonna do for the next reval, because the market dictates what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do until the, just like stockbrokers don't know where they're gonna end until the bell rings at 5. So, I think I know, and we can gamble, but I'm not a gambling lady with this type of matters.
No, because, yeah, I'm also, I mean, I feel like the bulk of our cases this season have been about this custom, which to me is an issue, and yeah, I guess I wouldn't gamble on it being resolved, and like, we've seen half a dozen assessors come and go as well. I hope you stay. Yeah, and I think actually, Alice's observation about the impact of the Route 1 proximity, if in this case, we could place it in the external obsolescence bucket and hope that carries forward. That seems like in this specific case, I could see going to 7 to 10% on external obsolescence. And maybe, the only other thing I would consider, too, is back to the waterfront. Like, it looks like all the properties in her street are at 1, and she's at 1.43 on the land. And maybe just if there's, like, a little adjustment that could be made. She does have a water view, but I don't know that it's
If
really...
you give me an idea of what you might want that to, did you want to go just see what it is at a 1 and go from there?
Well, didn't you mention the land, this property without an ocean view is down around 217 versus 295?
I did.
70 roughly, 68,000.
Yeah, and if I brought that just to 1.0, your basic, we're looking at, brings it down to 1.3259. And we'll leave the secondary land line at 0.50.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm kind of thinking, this is all like a little shooting from the hip, but I think there's a case for the water view adjustment, and there's a case for applying some kind of external obsolescence adjustment, which is what the assessor is already doing for customs north of Route 1. So water view adjustment, and then something for external obsolescence.
You could do a combo. You can let me know what you want to do. We could do that.
It's like a value meal at McDonald's.
Four?
Doing like, yeah. And we'll throw in a large fry.
All right, so the main line, is that what you would like me to do, 1.0? Or something lower, 1.25? You tell me.
Brad, are you coming out, are you trying to establish a number here? Or,
Yeah.
Well, right now, we've got about 70,000 less on the property, on the land.
Which is the land
Or
lending one?
68,000. So, I mean, what do you have do you have a number in mind where you wanted to see this come out at the end here?
I would consider I don't have a number in mind. I kind of was like...
If I do the
You put out-
condition at 1 and then head over to depreciation land and apply a 5% external
Yes.
obsolescence, we're looking at 1.2512. That's a number 3.
I mean, I think that's in the territory, right? You'd previously talked about doing an external obsolescence at 10, which brought it down to a similar territory. If you did it at 7%, it would be at 1.3.
And most likely, that's not something I would touch again, just so you know. Unless something really big went down there for the market, but that's pretty common to see some of the customs.
Yeah, so it's a modest external obsolescence, and then on the land, just given that it looks like the properties around are all at 1, and I don't know the conditions if I haven't stood on the site, but.
I mean, I do have a note here. It says distant view, good. I don't know how distant that is.
We have a picture.
Yeah, and that won't get looked at again until the full reval. If the appraiser on site feels like they'll put it right, they'll touch that again.
Will that be
But
you?
the
That would be Jennifer?
No, that'll be vision data entry. But that obsolescence would stay. They don't take those off without my permission, but they could change that again. That's common. Just something to be mindful of.
Okay. I'm pretty comfortable with that, but if someone wanted to say, like, we should do the land at 1.1 or 1.2, or, like, just acknowledge that you know, that, I could understand that as well.
That has a better chance of sticking, to be honest. I mean, like I said, I don't predict the future, but I have a feeling that could change. So if you wanted to go with a 1.25 on the condition factor and it takes into account that distant view, and then leave that depreciation at 5%, it's 1.303. Or if you wanted to go with a 7% depreciation, that brings it to 1.273. So I think that's your range at this point.
Yeah, because there is a view, it's just a distant view, so I have no problem having some added value to that, but not if you're comparing that to Indigo or something like
Right.
that. That's not.
And if we decide that the magnitude that also will maybe prevent some vision appraiser from bungling our adjustment in the future and saying, we got to put it back up, and then it goes back up to 1.4 because they went out and looked and saw the Atlantic Ocean. If it's so smaller, 1.25, then maybe that, like Wendy said, then that sticks. So we're not having this, you know, like the property just fluctuating constantly over these little things. Right, for the neighborhood, for the, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So, and if we do 5% on the external and 1.25, that brings it around 1.3 million as a final number. Coincidentally, it's almost the exact same magnitude as the last adjustment we just made, so.
Is that a motion, Brad?
Yeah, if everyone for that point, speeding along.
That adjusts the two areas where you want to adjust or at least look at, because I agree with that. So
It's a workaround for the the bee in my bonnet about the customs. It's a reasonable workaround that the assessor seems to be aware of and working on. So
that makes sense to me.
Slippery but
But I think it addresses the core issues that were presented in a fair way. So my motion would be to adjust the water view or the land condition factor to 1.25, please, and please apply an external obsolescence factor of 5%, which accounts for the impact of the location proximity to Route 1 on the custom home designation.
Just to be clear, that brings the value down to 1.303?
That's correct.
Okay.
Think you can sell it for that, Alex?
Yeah, that was a motion. Yeah.
Yes, Brad does. Yes, do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any other discussion?
Please, no.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Rome wasn't built overnight.
I'll send a letter out in the mail. You'll see exactly the abatement that'll be applied to your account. You'll get a letter. I won't send them out for another week. We have 10 days to get them in the mail. And it'll be applied, the credit, before your May 1st quarterly payment. So just give it a minute. It has to go through town council to be approved. So on the letter, it says to give us up to 60 days, but we usually 30 days we get there. I mean, you can. You'll be fine. It'll all shake out in the wash. This was not our choice.
Okay, folks, we're gonna move on to the next one here in a few minutes. It's number 123, just so the board knows, and the representative is here.
The reason this one's funny is because this is a pretty clear cut. Like this is like the kind of towards the worst cases that we've seen. Yes.
Yeah, this is the one over there by,
Right. No, I support accuracy, you know, and I understand that some of this, like the reclassification, that's what you're trying to do, is like get it right, and I respect that, like very much. And I think that the custom issues, like some of that is an effort really to get it right, and not to essentially to underassess these homes that are worth tens of millions of dollars that we've seen that have systemically been underassessed over the years, right? But big, yeah. Because if we're afraid, yeah, and don't take what, because if we're afraid of the custom, then then that leaves a lot of like very valuable homes probably underassessed, and that does, to me, that increases the burden on people that live in a ranch home in Kingston or whatever, you know, like that, then like we all, you know, a lot of people will pay a little bit more because we're missing the top of the, I get that, and that's why I don't want to toss the custom homes out with the, toss the baby out with the bathwater on the customs, so. But what we're seeing is where the borderline cases, the edge cases, and that's what we've seen a lot of as a consequence. So this is like, yeah, it's a little bit of our burden to bear in service of trying to get it right, which is like the basis of this whole thing.
this is the one up by Monsignor Clark, correct? Yeah. I'll have to say that this house is less of a custom house than the one previously. So I'll make that statement. Right? But I agree, you know, we're going to have to, I feel strongly we have to make an adjustment on this.
Yeah, this may be
Based
one
on
where
what I
we
just
actually kick it back down. I mean, this might, like, we have to do different things for in each case. This might be one where we do consider classification adjustment, whereas the previous one, we had to find another way around. So we have all these options.
I mean, I know at the last meeting when Ken wasn't here, we just kind of shot from the hip, somewhat, and didn't really come up with a specific adjustment. So I'm just reminding you, Brad, or I'm thinking about what we talked about and why we were just a little nervous about setting precedent. So,
Is this one here, like you said, more like it's in line with the neighboring properties, but the neighboring properties aren't custom, and this one was labeled it? And that's my memory of this appeal. Is that accurate,
I believe so.
Brad?
Yeah, no, it looks like, I mean, there were some presented. When I was flipping through it, right, so this one is a custom, right? And it is a little more custom-y. It's an unconventional, like,
Property up here,
Yeah,
if you'd like to see
versus,
on Eagle View. The street view does not give it the justice for why we applied a custom on there. The roof line, you can see why we did that. The turret, I don't think I've
But then,
seen any
yeah,
of those
like,
around town.
as Ken was saying, that you flip through the comps and you have a colonial, and then you have another colonial, and then the last page, 495 Congdon Drive is also colonial. And that doesn't look like a colonial at all to me, right? This kind of gets into my, like, yeah, but what does that mean for us, I guess?
So what would an override look like?
This is where I think Dave and I struggled with some of these overrides. We're just kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
But so maybe I'll just ask. I mean, yeah.
This is a north of Route 1. This may be a question for Ken and Alice, whether you think it'll sell for that, and if not, based on the location to the road there and the school, the definition is usually next to some type of large something, warehouse, I mean, school, whether, you would know more whether that would be marketable or not, or whether that would be the turn or not, so I would definitely use your hat on what you think it would sell for based on that.
How is this with the potential view of the river? Yes, no, maybe?
They've got the condition factor, it's a 1.84 acre lot. The main house acre is 1.110, and if you notice, there's a note there for the view. So it's very small. It's just a minor market adjustment for that river. Small, 0.10. I could let you know
Yeah,
the difference, but it's not much.
Yeah, the number feels heavy to me, but not because of its proximity. I mean, being close to the river, being close to the school is not. I mean,
It's the building materials for anything after the reval. Anything you see, it doesn't even custom. Anything that's built after COVID, in Atlanta, the building materials are just, it's cost.
Yeah, I have in my notes here from the last meeting in 2022, this was sold. This is more like a spec house. It was started, I believe, and it was sold for $1.1 million back in 2022. I know
That was
I'm
not
looking at
used
that.
for the reval, just, so you know, we only used 24 sales, so, but it's something to be mindful of. It did sell.
I don't think that there are negative factors as far as Route 1 or the school. I think that's more a positive. It's far enough away from the school. Yeah,
Yeah, it's literally, you can see it. There's a big parking lot.
but the 1.9 sounds heavy to me as far as market value.
If you have the 2023 sale as a qualified sale for 1.1 million, I mean, this wasn't really brought up in the hearing, but the jump to 1.9 is like I said, that's a magnitude of. I mean, that would be like I guess the realtors is real estate going up 25% a year.
no, not that dramatic.
If residential values were going up, say, 10% a year between 2023 and today, the assessment should have landed around 1.5. But I don't know precisely what residential trends are. If we're also then keying off of the sale price that we don't know. That's one data point. But it is a good point. I think, yeah.
Construction was, that would change the assessed value as of 2023. You know what I mean? It would be lower if it wasn't complete. I don't have a date on it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I have a CO that came through in 2023, and I didn't change it. It would go higher, and I thought it was already aggressive, so I just want to be mindful of, we really do try to stay conservative. I know it sounds like we're not with the customs, but
Let me ask this just to kind of ground us in some numbers. If it were to change from custom to, I guess I'll say colonial, or maybe conventional, I'm just curious
sure, you just want to see what the
How
swing
big
is.
is this
Okay.
swing?
Right now, the
What is the customer
custom
responsible
is 1.9513. So we'll start with the conventional, since that was the latter part of what you asked. That brings it down to 1.2636. So that's the swing for custom. Cape is going to be. Did you say Cape?
It's like colonial.
You said colonial. I'm sorry.
Conventional, maybe?
Oh, this is conventional,
Oh, yeah.
so colonial brings it to 1.939.
1093900.
Yeah, I can read
So
you
this-
the definition for a conventional custom if you want.
What was that, the 1.093?
That was a colonial. Conventional is 1.2636. And then you know what custom is.
Yeah, and I bring that up mostly just so that we have a sense of
Yep.
exactly how much lifting is the
It's-
custom classification doing here.
It's heavy.
Yeah, and I think, but, I mean, another good point maybe is that I think that probably those two numbers that you just said are probably too light for this property, so it's not as simple as just tossing it into a different bucket. It should probably
Just
be
for
higher than
ha-has,
that.
just because we did it on the other one, and it is north of Route 1, if we applied a 5% external obsolescence, that brings it to 1.863. If you were to go with 10, that brings it to 1.775. And then a 15 obsolescence would be 1.687. So there's some tools there, depending on how, I believe her opinion of value on her appeal was 1.4, she thought? Yeah. And if you wanted to use that tool, you'd have to apply quite a hefty obsolescence to get it close. 25% gets it to 1.5. I wouldn't suggest going higher than that.
Can I ask the appellant a question? From when you bought it, or 22, 23, to now, what work has been done in that period of time? Was it turnkey then, as it is now, or was it work in progress? Yep. Okay, good. I thought I remember you bringing something along those lines up, and I was cloudy on it, so thank you for. Okay, but that wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, until that's complete, you won't see that on the card. Yeah, I mean, if you complete it this year, probably for year-end 26, so next year you may see it depending on when it's done. Or you can just override it. I mean, that's the two venues right there, or style. But I think you guys are you're pros at this now.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to throw back out on the table is the subject of 66 River Heights Drive. There is this property, 84 River Heights Drive, which also recent construction. I believe it's the same builder. Right. So this is a neighboring property built within a similar time frame. That is it does say this the same builder. Right. So we've got a custom and a good, and this other property is a colonial average plus.
What's that property address that you're referring to, Brett? Do you have that?
Yeah, 84 River Heights. It's in the packet.
This is in my problem child folder for the grade.
Right.
Yes, and just to give you some, when Gene was here, he and this gentleman on 44, he came and appealed, and it was changed through Gene. Yeah, didn't come to you guys. He and I went out to the house.
84, you mean, right? 84?
Yeah, 84, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, so we went out there specifically to that house. It had some things that weren't done yet, and just so you know that was adjusted prior.
Yeah, it's good. It is, the issue with using another assessment as a comp for decision-making purposes is we never know what's going on with the other assessment. But it's a good example, yeah, we make a change and then the neighbor comes in and is like, that doesn't make any sense, and I think, I could see the case here, is like, why isn't the subject, so the neighbor's a 5 in terms of grade, and this one's a 6, and that's also.
I'm going to pull that up on the, yeah, give me one moment here. Let's pull the different style house.
The style is the issue, but I don't even think, that.
Yeah, there's the roof line on 84 River Heights Drive up there.
No, and really, like, purchase plans online to build a house on spec. Is this really custom? Is it just, so, my point, The only reason this is put in the custom is because you guys looked at the exterior and couldn't quite put it in any of the buckets based on the architectural features, I'm guessing, is like kind of what's at play here. It's like got an interesting roof line. But I don't know, is it like, should plans purchased online, built on spec, should that ever fall in the custom bucket?
It's a question we've asked ourselves, because I believe Jennifer has that exact same situation in her personal, and we like trying to sort that out for the next revo.
Yeah, it's a good.
We'll have a hard line for next time, but I don't have the answer, and more market data, and we'll have a more definite answer.
Yeah. It's why, but not to belabor this, but it's why, if it's not a style classification, once you start talking, you know what I mean? It's not just style, it's
Well, that's where the
quality
grade comes
and
into play with the building
Exactly.
materials. So like maybe it's a colonial, 8. Maybe the materials are superb. So we're going to be looking at that with a fine-tooth comb leading into the next statistical in full. This will get sorted out, but coal mining doesn't happen in a day, and neither does this.
So, but I think that if we just cut this to colonial, then I think it brings it down too far. So, like, how do we counterbalance that? Like, going way too far with one change. That's where, and I think that's where when we were stuck, we're like, we'll do an override then, because it's
Is it more like a conventional?
Could it be conventional?
Conventional? Conventional, I would think, would change with the decade that you're in.
We're going to be here all year.
I don't know, I think I'm just a little, again, we shot from the hip last time, I know, and I'm comfortable with that in a lot of ways, because we're not hanging our hat on something that is gonna come back to be an issue later on. So, just to talk about the custom thing real quick, when you drive by from the street, I mean, there's a lot of nice plans that are online right now. I mean, there's a whole market out there, and that whole thing has expanded huge over the last 10 years. So, I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to, and I probably couldn't even do it either, drive by and say, oh, yeah, that was designed by an architect, and that was something that was bought online. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, and you're not going to know it until you really, open up the hood, so to speak, and take a look at the house more closely with the features that the house has. So, I think, I'm just getting a little... If you guys want to go down that road and reclassify this into something else, I'll support it, but I'm just putting a word of caution out there that I think we're pinning ourselves into a corner, and I just don't really want to be boxed in at this point, or people that are here being boxed in.
Totally, that's a fair point. And, no, I agree. I think, and we really just have to deal with what's in front of us in this year. Because I think to some extent what I'm trying to resolve is, being here in 2 or 3 years and the verdicts are back because they're still a custom, and we made an adjustment to bring it to 1.5 million, and then in 3 years they're back up to 2.3 because they're still sitting in the custom bucket, and some of the nuances of the custom classification haven't been worked out. But I guess I can only solve 2025 or whatever, and we'll keep working on it, which is, to your point, Dave. The way to go about it might be, rather than to tinker in the system, is to just kind of do work around.
You have any opinion on that, Ken? Tinkering versus not tinkering?
No, we can tinker. I'm just, I am seeing that I'm going back to the differences between those two properties, because the other one seems to have an extra bathroom according to what I'm seeing online, and about 500 more square feet. So I'm trying to see what comparison that is. But as far as the tinkering goes, I'm fine with that. But you guys did such a good job the last time, I'll follow your lead.
I don't think we can do an external obsolescence adjustment here necessarily, because I don't think, if you just kind of take this property is assessed at a unit cost of approaching $500 a square foot that's base cost before depreciation. And then you do have that neighboring property, same builder, probably some similar qualities. The base cost there is $200 a square foot. It's like just like such a difference. And I know Jennifer already explained some of the history there. But 5 or 10% on external obsolescence isn't really going to help get us to where we need to be on this, I suspect.
Not that it matters, but I do find it interesting that both 66 and 84 River Heights sold the land on the same day to different owners on 410. Same exact acreage, 1.84. One sold for 135 with the view. The 84 River that doesn't have that .10 multiplier sold for 165. Strange.
One finished and one unfinished? It's just a lot.
Note here for assessment pricing error in 2018. I'm not sure what that is. The notes are not great. Moving forward, they'll be better. So we're kind of speculating at this point whether they're what happened.
I think on this lot, they had to do more excavation
More excavation on 84.
on hers.
Yeah. Oh, okay, on 66. Well, that makes sense then. Yeah. I can see why the previous assessor did designate 84 as colonial. If you look at the sketch, if you literally compare the sketch for 84 and 66, there's no stonework, there's no turret. Those are all usually a custom feature. Not that the swing is large, but I can see why he overturned it versus the latter.
Yeah, and that's the issue. If you look at the two, there may be differences, but would you look at one and say this costs $200 a square foot to build, and that costs $500 a square foot to build?
No.
That's my and so we're trying to that's what the four of us are trying to remedy here, but it's it's not even close. So it's hard for us because I think in the past, what we do in cases like this is we say, there's no evidence, there's no appraisal, we don't know what to do, deny, because we have nothing, no basis, nothing to go on. But I think we're compelled to look closer because we're seeing discrepancies and irregularities because of this, and it's.
I'm just looking at this comparison sheet that was submitted by the owner, at the hearing, on the second page here with this, and they bring up the point that from 23 to 24, their assessment went up 69%, and the other ones went up 21%. So I know there's some discussion about 84, but I guess I'm thinking about shooting from the hip here. So I mean, maybe we take that, maybe we just look at this and say, okay, that went up 69%. Why don't we just not? What happens if we take 20? What happens if we just brought that down to 49% or 50%, and just use that as our basis for making an adjustment? or whatever percentage it is, and just call it a show at that point.
Yep.
Because, again, we're getting in the weeds, I think, with this other stuff that we're talking about. And I can hang my hat on something like that when I look how all of these houses are built by the same builder, they're in the same neighborhood, and why did one go up 69% versus 21%? And I know there's some other factors involved that we really can't put our head, we can't identify, and we don't have to get down to 21%, but we certainly could knock off roughly 20% and see what that number.
Yeah, I'm actually doing some of the
Which
calculations
is,
right now.
I think I might have just done that. I mean, that brings it, if you knock off around 20%, bring it down to 49%, that puts it down around 1.6, just a little over 1.6 million.
And maybe to give another boundary to the discussion, if we took the average increase of the other houses, 21%, if we applied 21% to the subject as an increase, it would have increased to 1.396, so about 1.4 million. If the Burdick's home had gone up at the same percent increase as the neighbors, it'd be 1.4. That may be where they came up with the 1.4 opinion of value. It gives us some parameters to work with, at least,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I mean, I think this is the approach that I would take, and I guess the question is, do we want to like make it comparable to the neighbors, or do you want to just, not be that dramatic or that drastic, I guess, in some type of an adjustment? I guess my thought is, there's a lot of stuff that we have here on paper here that has already been through the assessment process, so I guess for me to just drop that down to what everybody else's is, I'd be a little apprehensive to do that. And I would try to come up with a happy medium.
What was the number you came up with, Dave? The 1.6 number?
I think I lowered this. I think I knocked 24. I think I knocked 20% off the 69%. I think it was 49 to 50%. But anyway, it's 1,616,300 is knocking roughly 20% off of that 69%.
Wendy, can I go back and ask you, you did a calculation that had to do with the location, I think, and you came up with a number of 1,667. Does that ring a bell to you? Which you said one option was 1,775 and one option was 1,667. Can you just go back briefly and?
Yep.
And that had to do with the location.
Yep, let me.
North of Route 1.
Bear with me one moment. Just doing one thing and applying a 15% external obsolescence being north of Route 1, consistent with the past appeal and customs, that brings that to 1.6872. So you do that without an override, and that would probably stick.
Okay, at the very least, that's a direction I'm comfortable with, and now the question will be is, do we want to go down towards where Dave or even where you were talking about, Brad? So, because 1.9 certainly is out of it, but anywhere between 1.4 and 1.6, I don't have a strong opinion on how that would fare value-wise. But that's the neighborhood we should be talking about, between 1.4 and 1.6 or 1.6 and change. Are we all in agreement and comfortable within that general range?
Territory. And then when 15%, is that, you probably haven't gone beyond 15% in these external obsolescence
The
adjustments?
highest I went was 25. Okay. They were way out in Kingston.
Right.
My humble assessor opinion is up there, based on the location to the parking lot, the school. Although I'm not a realtor.
I'm feeling comfortable anywhere from 1.4 to 1.5.
The 20% gets you to 1.599. I think, like I said, the highest I've gone for this redevelopment customs was 25, and that's 1.511.
That's good.
Just to stand corrected on my, Ken, when you asked me that question, I did a 40% increase. I just kind of took that number. It was, theirs went up 69, everybody else went up 20, 21, so I just picked 40%. So when I multiply, the previous assessment of 2023 of 1.154,500 times 140%, that's how I came up with that 1.616,300 number. And
40%, just a mindful note, the average custom increase was between 52 and 56.
okay, that I did not know. I just picked 40 out of the air. I like picking stuff out of the air. I'm not opposed to increasing that percentage up higher to be more closer to the customs if the other members feel that the 40 is, too low.
No, I mean, I kind of am more like where Alice is around 1.5. I think that there's justification, but yeah, I mean, we're just kind of like quibbling over numbers. I like custom, but this is to me like maybe custom light or something. If we had that to go on, so I get. So yeah, like there's some reasons not to go to just right down to the 21% increase like the neighbors. Like we're trying to figure something out without anything else to go on. And this is where like we're doing, we got calculators going, we got like, we're doing a lot of homework to try to find a resolution. So yeah,
Yeah, 50%, like you said, Wendy, we're at 1.731 if we do a 50% increase versus a 69% increase from the previous assessed value. If we increase, I'm looking at this data, at this sheet here from, that the homeowner submitted, Ken, along with this letter back at the, if you go to page 2 on there, yeah, their main point in this, what are their main points in the presentation were those those 4 properties that were built by the same builder, and that increase, from the previous assessment to where we're at in 2024. So that's what I looked at that. I just picked 140. But I mean, if we go to 150, and that's based on the comments from staff that the average custom homes are going up 50%, that puts us, if I multiply that, if I take 1.154 times 150%, I come up with a little over 1.7 million. If I take 40%, I'm a little over 1.6 million. And I don't feel we should be going down to the same, 21% increase on like the other folks, the neighbors. So, yeah, I'm comfortable either way, 40 or 50%, whatever, and if people feel strongly one way or another, I'm flexible. But that would be my approach to make an adjustment here.
All right. I'm not in the 1.7 category. I do think that's too high. But again, 1.5 to 1.6 in that range is more my sweet spot that I'm thinking based on the information that I have.
Well, to expedite things, I would make a motion to look at the previous assessed value from 2023. I'm just looking at this chart here, the spreadsheet, and I would say their increase is 69%. I would propose to make a increase of 40%, and that would give us instead of 69%, so that would give us a number of 1.616,300 for the revised assessed value. And that's just, again, I don't have any mathematical scientific basis for that. I'm just making that a suggestion based on the comparisons of the other property. So I have a motion on the floor.
I'd second that motion. I can live with that.
Do we have any other discussion?
Yeah, again, I'm in that range, so I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. Again, I could be swayed anywhere in that general area, but if that's, I'm going to trust your judgment on your calculations, and that doesn't feel bad to me.
Shooting from the hip's okay, huh? All right, we have a motion, we have a second, and then we just had some discussion. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Can we just take let's take a 5-minute break here, just to kind of,
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
we
And
can
just a
group here.
reminder, there is a meeting in the chambers at 1 PM, so 12:30, we should wrap it up so the next crew can come in and do their thing.
is everybody, before we take a break, is everybody okay staying here till 12:30?
12:30 is about the latest I could stay, but I can do till 12:30.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Let's take 5, and then we'll go from there. Wendy is.
Yeah, I'll guide you just for the sake of time as to which ones are gonna be less time consuming. All are very important.
Okay, we're back on track. So we've done 3, correct?
You got it. So we're gonna start right back at the top. We're gonna go with 98 and 100 for now, and then we'll see how far we get there. So I would suggest starting right back at the top with appeal number 98.
98's on board, on deck. Now, did we, you didn't submit anything for 98, any additional information, correct, Wendy?
No additional information, although there was something that was just received into the record on February 27th. You should have that in your packets.
Yep, okay.
and
So we didn't hear
that's-
this, so this from February 27th.
Yeah,
Well, that was
it's
at
been
11.
lingering for a bit.
We didn't get, we heard this before, so we haven't heard this at the public hearing, correct?
Correct, they never came through other than just paper.
Okay, I do remember this one now. This one is kind of similar to probably the one we just heard.
I'll bring the parcel up too, just to refresh your memory. Sometimes I need a visual. Yep, there we go.
I hope you get some rest this weekend, Jennifer, and get over the allergies or cold or whatever.
Just to regroup, this is a custom 51 Osprey Road. Applicant's opinion of value, 1.3 to 1.5. They're asking to reclassify the style to modern contemporary.
Very, very similar case. This is a very similar case to what we've heard before. In cases like this, though, I look at the pictures, I look at the information. Is this going to be a case of discovery? This is where, like, you're observing that some of these homes are very, very similar. They're classified as colonial, et cetera. The assessment now, this on your radar screen, it's likely that these will be changed. And so this is why assessment comparables are hard for us, is because we don't know what's wrong. Is the subject wrong, or is the comparable wrong? And if we fix the subject, but it turns out that all the comparables are wrong, then we're going in the opposite direction of getting it right, right? It's like, just to set up the conversation. But I do note it, like, they have the property on Sycamore that they've identified, 20 Sycamore, same builder, same era of construction, Carl Johnson design build, custom builder, acknowledged. But what I think is like a much larger home is only assessed for marginally less than theirs. So I mean that one comparable assessed at a unit cost of around $289 a square foot, where the subject is, because it's a custom, is assessed at in the upper 400s. So this is a similar case. It's like, what do we want to do about that? This one may be more legitimately within a custom classification. So the only issue is that it's got some comparable neighbors around it that aren't being hit with that.
Looking at Bass Road, which is around the corner. from the Osprey Road, which is considerably larger, somewhat similar style. And the Bass Road is 1.3, and they're at almost 2 million. Same neighborhood. South Wheaton is also around the corner. South Wheaton, Bass Road, and Osprey are all almost throwing distance from each other, very close. And the Osprey Road one is just under 2 million, 1.989. And the others are 1.2 and 1.1 and a half. If I were marketing properties to sell, the Osprey Road one wouldn't be almost 2 million.
So they're making the suggestion that modern, it should be modern contemporary. What would that look like, Wendy?
All right, if I were to change just the style from custom to modern contemporary, that would bring the assessed value total to 1.1767.
That is absolutely amazing, that jump.
It is aggressive.
That's amazing.
It's a huge jump.
I mean, Alice, you brought up a good point. I mean, I'm just looking at these two field cards right here, you know, one from the subject property. And then I'm looking at this one in Blackberry Hill. You know, they're both roughly the same. You know, when I look at them, the roof lines, I mean, when I look at it from a builder's perspective, they both look like somewhat of a custom home, but, you know, one's, you know, and they're both around 2,800 square feet. And you've got a, you know, you've got one that's, you know, assessed at 1.9 million, and you've got the other one here at Blackberry Hill, the first one that they've listed, and the assessed value is 1.2. So there's like almost a $700,000 spread in a similar very almost identical square footage of living. I'm looking at living space, and, you know, and the design's very similar. And actually, you know, the total gross area is a little bit more on the subject property versus the comparison property at Blackberry Hill. But, you know, is it $700,000 spread? Is that fair? I guess when I like the last one, no. When I compare that, I think I think that discrepancy is not correct. And like Brad stated, you know, where does it come from? Is the subject too low, or, you know, I don't think it is. I think 1.9 million for this house is, and maybe, you know, you real estate experts or folks could dispute that, but I think 1.9 million for this house is probably unrealistic.
I would agree. Alice, how?
Absolutely. You could walk from one house to the other in 2 minutes. You know, they're that close. And the same thing with Bass Road.
So the question is, so I imagine that the assessor is going to contemplate custom classifications for these comparables in the future. So are the current assessments for the comparables at 1.2 million, 1.3 million, 1.16 million, are those accurate or are those too low?
I see a problem right off the bat when I see Blackberry Hill Drive, that grade being a 5. Just to give you some context, we've got the new construction on Curtis Corner and Vespia at a 5. That's the grades off. I got issues with the comps, and that is very my problem child.
So we can't, right,
So,
if we're going to make a change, we can't rely too much on the comps because they might be artificially low. Even though there's a spread, that deserves our attention. But they might be low, which is why, on these ones, we have
for
to...
the purpose of this appeal, it's hard to look somebody in the eye at 51 Osprey and not look at that 3 through. I agree with Alice, that 331 Blackberry Hill Drive. Now, as an assessor, I'm looking at them, I'm denying them because they're correct. Now they're with you. I'm not going to impede their due process by any means, but same issue as some of the others. Again, we'll sort this out between now and the full revow. But for now, that is their comp, and it's hard to unsee.
Yeah, we're in the same...
It was a 2016 construction, so, take that with a grain of salt because construction materials from 2020, 2016, that is in play. We'll leave it at that.
We don't, unfortunately.
And the sketches, if you look at the sketch, you could argue Blackberry Hill is obviously easier to construct. I don't know, Mr. Bod would know more than me. He's the builder. Maybe a little bit more trickier to build 51, but the swing is large.
Yeah, it's too big of a spread to really justify it, I feel like. But yeah, I lost my train of thought on that. But I guess what I was going to say is we unlike the last few where we kind of have that percent increase of the comparables versus percent increases, we don't have that in this case really, because it looks like the comps didn't even really go up that much. They seem to have been shielded from some of the increases. So we don't have that as a benchmark to try to bridge the gap.
And the appellant is being fair by saying what they feel that it would sell for on the market, 1.3, 1.5. I'm not a realtor, but I think that's pretty fair and reasonable. I do enjoy reasonable people, and they're being reasonable. So I would definitely take that into consideration. I don't think the tools for the style and the grade are going to get you there. No. This may be an override situation, and again, the overrides will signal to me during a revow to look at the neighboring comps, so I'll make sure all of these customs from this appeal cycle, even if they didn't make it to the board, because we had quite a few that didn't pursue, I'm going to have them under my belt to look at all the neighboring, properties leading up to the full.
If we took just to throw out some numbers, but the upper end of their estimate at 1.5 million, that would be almost a 20% jump from the previous assessment. I think that the other comparables in the neighborhood, for the most part, didn't see it jump that high. But just to kind of tether us to what they're saying, should it go up 20%? The neighbors went up, in some cases, 10. Some cases, one case it looked like it went down. But that's the magnitude that they're looking at. They were 1.253 previously. 1.5 is kind of in the middle to lower. It's towards the midpoint, a little bit lower.
I will tell you that it backs up to Tunic Beach Road, which is a very busy road all summer long.
I have it up here just if you want to see. This is the Osprey Road, and it's off Tunic Beach Road, and it's in the beautiful area of our town beach in Marys and Roy's.
don't think you're allowed to mention that.
But it does have traffic in its backyard. It's not, there's no seasonal view there. Well, I lived about 5 houses or 4 houses away from this. Yeah. There's no seasonal view there. Yeah.
If you want to take view into consideration, I don't think it's that big a deal. Bass Road's got a condition of 1.25. South Whedon's 1.25. So if you wanted to extract those out of the comps and just focus on 20 Sycamore Lane, that's a condition factor of 1.00. Same with Blackberry Hill. That may,
Sycamore Lane, that neighborhood has to have a higher rating than Blackberry Hill.
they've got the neighborhood adjustment being, they have the neighborhood adjustment, which is higher, correct?
Yeah.
Not the site location for view, but the neighborhood is 2.25. And Osprey Road is a different neighborhood, but they also have an increase of 2.20, so very similar neighborhood adjustment. One of the higher ones in town.
If you run that number, what would we be looking at?
If I were to, I can't reduce the condition factor and the neighborhood, that's just the reval adjustment, so there's nothing to do there. I think you're only way out of this as an override.
This is an override.
There's an override all day.
We're going to
Sorry,
come up
but
with
you're
an
not going
override.
to get there any other way. Unless you change the style, that's all you got.
Their assessment jump, we're kind of back to the David Bond method of making an adjustment, but
Trademark that, David.
their assessment went up 58%. The upper end of their market value suggestion is a 20% jump. And the lower end is it's in the tens, but that would be consistent with the neighbors only went up a little bit, so we got a few data points in the constellation. So we're just really, I think if we do it kind of like we did previously off of just considering maybe an appropriate percent increase or something along those lines, because I think, making a style or a style change is, it'll cut it in half, and it really doesn't get us anywhere logical because they're all going to be custom again, and I'm assuming something like that in a few years. So I think we're just going to have to come up with something reasonable that acknowledges the discrepancy with the neighboring assessment and the magnitude of the increase as a result of being grouped with these custom things. So it's just kind of like, where do we feel comfortable landing?
So at a percentage point there, Brad, have you run any numbers just to see what it looks like?
The only one,
compromise?
I put in, they say market value 1.3 to 1.5. I put 1.5 in just to see how big of a jump, and that was just about, it's approaching a 20% increase from the previous. But I could, certainly, I think that's kind of like one place to start anchoring the conversation. And that would be like about a $400,000 to $500,000 reduction in assessment, which is, that would be like a quarter of the assessment.
Go for it, David.
Yeah.
I just have another case, and just another observation here. I'm just looking at in one other subject property here too, just based on a builder's standpoint of view, 20 Sycamore Lane, a Carl Johnson house also. And I'm just looking at like on the subject property, they're assessing the house, or they're at almost $465 a square foot. It's a 2,800 square foot house, and the larger house is almost, not quite double the size, but almost, and they're assessing that at $289 a square foot for living space. So when you look at just from the pure standpoint of the value of the house, like the subject property, the house alone is valued at $1.657 million. And this one on 20 Sycamore Lane, because I did look at that, you know, I'm familiar with that because I did talk to that owner. This house is substantially bigger, almost 2,000 square feet bigger, and they've only assessed that at $1.815 million. So it's only a $200,000 spread, and you got over 2,000 square feet larger on this house on Sycamore, plus it's got a swimming pool, which you know, it's like, it's a whole nother house. Because I remember looking at plans for that house, I'm like, this is a big house. So when I just compare those two, just from a pure builder standpoint, that doesn't make sense to me.
And that number, that base cost is being driven by the style. That's the impact of custom. It's nearly double per square foot. And that doesn't make, I mean, it's not, it really isn't logical. That's why we have to change something, because it doesn't make any sense.
Do you have an opinion on the value based on that thought process?
Yeah, but, well, when I look just at the house, when I'm looking at these two houses, I mean, I'm familiar with them because I kind of got involved in the early stages, and you know, at least one of them. I think the value of the subject house is too high. I think that 1.6 million for this house that we're talking about is, I think it should be probably down to maybe like, you know, probably around 1.2 or 1, maybe around 1.2 or 1.3. You know, just shoot, again, I'm not going to take square foot numbers and analyze all these numbers here, but I'm just looking at this compared to the other one. I think that is high for that house, 1.6. I think it should be down probably like, you know, probably not, maybe $300,000 less or so.
All right, well, they're saying it's between 1.3 and 1.5, so you're going to be within that range, in your opinion of value.
Well, I'm pretty much looking at the house itself. I'm not talking about the property here. I'm looking more at the house.
Yeah, house only.
You know, the house only. I'm just looking at the, you know,
So it's a good, so the land is assessed at, I think this is helpful. That was helpful too, just to get a sense of what the construction costs might imply about the value of the home, the improvements. Land is valued at $387,000. You know, you suggest, I mean, this is like back of the napkin, that, you know, the value of that home, the contributory value of the improvements should be between 1.2 and 1.3 rather than what is it, 1.6? That would, if you took the midpoint there at 1.25, essentially, if you said the house contributes 1.25 million, you add that to the land value as assessed at 387, that would put the assessment at 1.637, which is a little over a $300,000 adjustment, as you say. A little, you know, more than their opinion of value, but yeah.
and this larger house is, you know, technically on Sycamore Lane, but it's on the corner of Sycamore and East Matunic Beach. Yeah, so there is a lot of traffic that goes by it, and I know they've shielded that off or buffered that, but still, you're right on, you know, a busy road. But I think that, you know, I guess that location is debatable, whether it's a better location or not.
Is Sycamore a ways down the street?
This
around the corner?
this house I'm talking about on 20 Sycamore Lane is literally, as you enter Sycamore Lane,
on
Cove
the
Road.
corner?
It's right on the corner of Sycamore and Matunic Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. So it actually fronts right on Matunic Beach Road. You know, that, yeah, it's a corner lot, so that whole, you know, lot is right on Matunic Beach Road.
Just so I'm following your logic, David, and I'm not holding you to the number, but are you indicating that you feel more comfortable in the 1.637 range? Like that would be a number you would be comfortable with based on the logic you just presented?
Yeah, I would, based on what I just mentioned, I'd be looking to bring this value down to probably around the $1.5 to $1.6 million range, correct? Value of the land and the house. Because, you know, the lot would be probably, I mean, the house itself would probably be down as a 1.2, which is so the lot's got to be worth 300, so that puts us up to 1.5. So, yeah, I'd be okay with a 1.5 Ranger if you folks, you know, thought something should be a little bit higher than that. You know, maybe up to 1.6, I'd be okay with that as well.
Yeah, we're in the
You know.
ballpark, because if we take that 1.2 for the house and we add it to the land value, we've already got a 387, that's 1.587, so we're kind of in that territory, 1.5, 1.55, 1.6.
Okay, make a motion for a decrease in value to 1.587, which was the number that seems to resonate with me based on the information you just presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. Is there any other discussion? Staff understood what we're talking about, right? Our previous comments? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, it's,
Okay, it's up to you. If you
123,
want
I mean, 1223.
Appeal 100, in my humble opinion, should not take more than 3 minutes.
Let's do it.
Okay, and then I will
Last
call it a day after that.
Thank you. I'm on board.
Appeal 100, okay.
We're in overtime right now. So just to refresh the board's memory on this one, Mrs. Cook did supply, after the meeting here, there was a question about wetlands that we did not know about. So she did submit something on March 16, 2026 from Natural Resource Services, Inc. They have extended a freshwater wetland delineation. There was a fieldwork inspection performed by Freshwater Wetland Delineation on September 26, 2022. Let's see. The town tax assessors database has the subject lot listed as approximately 6.58 acres in size. Property is located east of Omer Drive and is developed with a single-family home. Since then, an ADU has been constructed or converted from the garage. Rear of the property is forested, while the developed half of the property is maintained as lawn. Our original wetland delineation was established within the field between the house and Omer Drive. Each of the wetland delineation has been extended to the property line. The western limit of the swamp being the house has also been flagged. That being said, they're asking for another review from DEM. So from my perspective, unless you tell me otherwise, I'd have to review this one more time. If you look at the site sketch, it's doesn't impact the house lot, but that's up to you if you wanted to do something with that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just going to bring it up on the computer as well and show you the assessor map that we have on record.
the other thing that was going on here, you know, were questions about the condition of, they constructed an ADU and the original house was there were questions over the condition, but my recollection was that all seemed to be accounted for in the
If
in
you
the
actually
valuation.
look at the assessor map up here, so it's lot 16, kind of scrolling my little mouse over here. See those wetlands there? It's no change from what we already have. You can barely see it, but see those little dots here? That's wetlands. So we've already, it's a surveyed lot. We already have that on record, so there's nothing further, basically, to do. It's already accounted for.
And I think the big driver behind the increase in assessment was that they had done some construction in the interim. They built an accessory dwelling unit, or it looks like, I think they renovated a garage structure into an ADU. And they say that 3/4 of the site is impacted by wetlands, but I don't know that.
We have exactly that here. Yep, right in the front, right in the back.
Yeah.
And again, this is a surveyed lot, so I'd have to look to see when the survey was recorded, but I would assume it was probably around the same time. I didn't supply it with a package, but the assessor comp, there aren't many. ADUs are kind of new, right? They were previously in-laws, they've been defunct and grandfathered in. I'd be more than happy to pass this field card down for you if you'd like to see it. It's 1267 Kingstown Road, and it's almost mirrors this property as far as the main house being a much older home, year built 1876, effective year 1977, small house, 965 square feet, but they are constructing an ADU. They're about 70% complete, and their assessments mirrors the subject.
Right. I mean, so they saw their assessed value for the improvements jump from, let's say, 154,000 to 497,000, but the entirety of that increase is the bringing that renovated structure into as a dwelling unit in 2024. That's where that's what's.
So what was the state of the ADU in 2024? Was it fully completed?
So I have year built as 2024, and that's a 380,000. I guess it's been depreciated 1% of that total assessed value at 497. It's like most of the value of the buildings is in the new ADU and renovated garage structure. So because I know that the applicant made a comment in the materials that the original house on the site is, quote, tear down. I think they called it. The main house is a tear down. The main house, I don't know that anything was presented to give us evidence that it's a tear down, but it's been depreciated some 50%.
The deputy assessor did do an interior of the main house, and as such, I did remove the lean-to that was on the outbuilding because we're phasing those out, and then I did change the style. They did receive a adjustment of value of $14,600 when they appealed with me. So they did get an abatement of $130.52 on the main house.
Yeah, I think it seemed like the description as a tear down seemed like an exact. To me, a tear down is if it's detracting from value. It has 0 to negative value, and I think it must contribute some value, even if you just renovate it. So that was the other issue to explore beyond the wetlands question. But yeah, I don't know if I see much here to go on.
So you're comfortable with everything? You don't?
Oh, I'm 100% comfortable. We went out, saw the property. If I'm mindful to properties that need a little love, especially since they're putting the work into the other structure, which I understand. When you have new construction during a reval year, it's always going to be a sticker shock. You kind of get a double hit.
I'm not seeing any evidence here or recalling anything that would make me change anything. So,
Yeah, really, just to underline the issue with the land, like they're essentially being assessed for an acre of land out of that 6.5 acres. No, yeah, right. Really, like the wetlands does not seem to be. Yeah, like that seems to be accounted for in what they're assessed for. I don't see any issues with that.
Yeah, this map, it doesn't seem to have an impact on the property or the building, the structures. So no comments, no additions, there's no more evidence that we should be considering? Because I don't see anything in front of me that's going to warrant me to do a reduction, unless...
Yep, I think we've seen the gist of that's the gist of the case right there.
The landline condition factor is 1.00. It's not going to be much of a difference, but that residual acre, 5.580, I do see that there isn't a wetland reduction. You could reduce that secondary line to something, 0.50, and then
that would be maybe, yeah.
Which is what I would have probably done had I received that prior. This was already in the queue before
Right.
it came to me, It's not gonna be much of a reduction,
No, that'll be
but
like a $12,000
Yeah.
adjustment, but
Yeah,
if you
actually,
really,
I'll do
we're
that right
talking
now.
about, so the land residual, the extra 5 acres that they got plus that is impacted by wetlands, it hasn't been marked as wetlands in the land.
no, so
Yeah.
gonna wait to see what y'all were gonna do today, but let me just go into it now.
I mean, it keeps our record intact of,
Aaron's in it. You're on it, Aaron. Our clerk is watching downstairs. It's hilarious. All right, bear with me one moment. So I'm going to probably do this regardless, but might as well just do it now since we're in the light of day. So if I take that down to a 0.50 and make a note for wetlands, close. That brings it down to 7697. That go down or up? What happened? Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
yeah.
Which is happening anyway.
I mean, it's a token, but I think it moves us more towards accuracy because it reflects that extra land
Yeah, I
is
mean,
impacted by wetlands, so.
it's accounted for, and then that was actually Grace's, we'll leave it at that. So that's what it is right now, regardless. If you wanted to make a motion, make it official, but I will do that
I'm
anyway.
comfortable making that motion. I would just make a motion that on this one, the only adjustment we make is that we reduce, I think, the condition factor on the, I don't know what you call the surplus, they have the surplus.
It's residual
The residual
acre.
to, from 1.0 to 0.5
Okay.
to account for the impact of the wetlands on the already low utility land.
All right, that's fair.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll second it. My only question is, what's the value, what's the decrease in value, around 12 or 14,000, did you say?
It's actually,
What was it before? Sorry, I was my 774. 7,700.
Brad, you're okay with that?
yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, we have a second, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes.
Awesome. Now, at this point, let's make a,
Didn't we have another,
I don't believe we did this.
on the schedule?
We'll have to see.
didn't, 'cause
We
we
can
were-
either do it now
We
while we're
were,
all
we
here.
were really
Or we
optimistic
gotta
we
get
could
out of
get
here
till.
before we get kicked out. We are dreamers.
I still think that we'll be faster next time.
Oh, yeah, I
I don't know if
agree.
I'm deluded, but I do feel like we'll be faster next time.
Since y'all have your packets ready to go, we're ready to go, you tell me, we can meet as early as even next week. You really wanted to just get this out of the way before May.
Next Wednesday, I don't have anything on my calendar yet, which should be the fifth.
I believe I am as well. Yeah, perfect day. Let's meet on tax day.
So I have an eye doctor's appointment that morning, from 9 to 10. I could come late, or we could schedule for later, or we could do,
It looks like, I'm looking at the chamber schedule, it looks like there's an 11 o'clock bid opening on the 15th, so we're looking at the 14th?
I can't do the 14th.
No 14th, okay. How about,
For this purpose, though, going in the little room wouldn't bother me.
okay, the conference room?
Yeah, as long we keep it open, but we don't need to occupy I know the capacity of this room is a concern to people
I
in this
know,
community. But if there's another room where we could do this in, that would still be.
I don't know
public.
how that works with IT, I have no idea, I'll have to put a ticket in, they're gonna have to help me through that, it took me 9 meetings just to figure this out, so, we'll worry about that another time. So did you say you could do the 15th, but later?
Yeah, that's
On
what-
11 o'clock, or maybe they could even move to, they might be able to switch rooms with me, so if you wanna do the 15th,
My only, so at 9 o'clock appointment at Kochai, and I don't know how long that, it's a medical appointment.
It's up to you if you want to throw a time out there or go with another day. You have the following week.
I'm gonna, my wife is gonna be having surgery April 22nd.
Okay.
And that's just gonna knock me out.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
a while.
Yeah, I got a lot, we're like now leading into like our homestead stuff, certification, like
If there's, I feel like if there's
where.
another one where either Alice could fill in that day, or I can come late, or we do the 16th, the 20th, 21st, like try to do
I
something
mean, if we can get a
before.
quorum on the 15th, it sounds like we have a quorum.
I'd say,
God willing, if the creek
Let's just
doesn't
do
rise.
10 to 1, Brad comes when he comes.
yeah.
Would that work if
15th?
I?
Yeah.
if so- so-
10 to 1's fine, and then.
Yeah,
if you're
I'm
not
just
here-
gonna screw you guys up if we delay.
No,
anymore.
I trust Alice can pinch it, and I'll just come when, with my eyes dilated.
So
and-
April 15th from 10 to 1?
Let's do it.
You want to do 10, or you want to do 9:30?
Listen to me, dude.
It's up to you, it's up to you guys, whatever, you know. Want to do 10?
I mean,
I would suggest, let's get it started at 9:30, start working through it. I will
And
join
then-
in,
okay.
just because I feel like I can pitch in on some of these that
All
I've
right,
seen.
I'll book the room 9:30 to 1 just for ha-has, and then
Pick the
we'll
easy
go from there.
ones early, and then I'll come in for the
Yeah, yeah.
tough stuff.
We'll see.
So we're doing 9:30.
All right, Mr. Bob, back
Keep
to
the
you
normal
just
schedule.
to finish with adjournment.
Okay,
So we'll send a reminder, so just to regroup, the old business will be continued on April 15th, Wednesday, from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. We're either going to meet in the council chambers or the conference room, to be determined.
very good. Any other comments, questions, business? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. To close the meeting, aye. Aye. Meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.